Hello and welcome to a special year-end edition of the show, one we are calling The World Next Year. Our coverage of 2017 in partnership with the Daily Beast. Tracy McNichol joins us. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Also want to welcome Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, columnist for the Sunday Telegraph and the Daily Telegraph.
And the Daily Telegraph.
How are you?
Fine.
All right.
Glad to see the back of 2016.
Glad to see another man who might be glad to see the back of 2016 is France 24's very own Douglas Herbert. We've brought you on a show to talk about next year. You said you weren't great at predicting what would happen this year.
No, I got everything wrong last year, all 15 predictions, but I'm excellent at predicting the past year. If you want me to predict the year that was, I'm good at that.
Okay. A Franco-Australian who hangs his hat in the cartooning capital of the world, Brussels, Nicolas Vadou of Cartooning for Peace. Thank you for taking the Thalys train to join us and look into your crystal ball for the year to come.
Thanks for having me. I don't have a crystal ball, and everybody who had a crystal ball in 2016 got it wrong, so I better be quiet on that.
All right, we'll see. Throughout the year, by the way, you can join the conversation on Twitter and the World This Week Facebook page. Promising change on the campaign trail is one thing. Delivering it is another. If 2016 was the year of upheaval at the ballot box in Britain and the US, then now definitely comes the hard part. Starting with the UK, here's what we know so far.
Be clearer. Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it. There will be no attempts to remain inside the EU. There will be no attempts to rejoin it by the back door, no second referendum. The country voted to leave the European Union, and as Prime Minister, I will make sure that we leave the European Union.
Brexit means Brexit. We've been haunted by that phrase ever since the month of June, Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, but we're nearly toasting the new year, and we still don't quite know what it means.
I don't think anybody knows what it really means. What's very obvious is that the Brexit camp themselves, once they won, kept on complaining about how the others were complaining that they'd lost. So it's this rare example of sore winners. We don't know what real Brexit is like. Everybody is saying, oh, so far, it's like the man who jumps from the 100th floor and says, so far, so good. Article 50 has not been invoked yet. There have been sort of various notions of when it would be invoked and start the 2-year countdown to get to Brexit, but we don't have a firm date. We don't know what it entails. Right now, the British are sort of saying, you are still creating jobs. The pound has gone down by something like over 20%, but Britain is still creating jobs. But that's before they hit the ground and start working on this. The head of the civil service in Britain has said that they needed 30% more civil servants just to work on all those treaties that they're supposed to work on. There has been absolutely sort of no political ordered progress on this one. And Mrs. May has said, oh, I cannot say what I'm going to ask because that would show my hand too early. And you could mistake that for thinking that perhaps she yet does not quite know what she's going to do. I don't think they do.
Here's a clear one. The single market. Leaving the European Union, saying you're leaving the European Union is one thing. Leaving the single market, though, in which you trade goods and services and this kind of thing. The Scots have said clearly they want to hold a second referendum if ever they do. What's Theresa May going to do?
Well, first of all, the British do not do Brexit on their own. They have to have a partner. The partner is Europe. The EU are incredibly, and the Commission are incredibly angry against Britain, and also they want to scare other nations and show them this is what happens to you if you want to leave. And now you could argue that, when did the dream of Schuman and Monet become Her Majesty's security prison from which you're not allowed to escape? Then that would be an interesting political point. It should not be like that. But at the same time, nobody's going to help the Brits. It's not helped by the fact that Theresa May thought she would be clever, and she named the three major Brexiteers, apart from Michael Gove, into positions to negotiate this, and they don't know what they're doing. You've got Boris Johnson, who's the foreign secretary and who thinks that you can do diplomacy the way you write a column for my own paper. And his columns are wonderful, but that's not the way you do diplomacy. There's David Davis and Liam Fox, who are in charge, respectively, of Brexit and foreign trade. They've had turf wars, but they haven't said what they want to do. And opposite, Jean-Claude Juncker has appointed a Frenchman, Michel Barnier, who used to be Minister for European Affairs and a commissioner, to be in charge of Brexit. And the idea is not to give the British anything as long as they do not agree to the four freedoms. And the result of this is probably that there's going to be a hard Brexit, and that means no easy access to the single market unless the British accept something which their electorate voted against, which is free circulation of people inside the EU. It's not quite clear what's going to happen.
All right, but politically, and Elisabeth's saying there that it can only really be a hard Brexit, i.e. out of the single market.
Look, there's this idea, if you actually Google have your cake and eat it too, there have been a lot of articles written with those exact words in it when you're talking about Brexit. And there still is this sense, it's almost like despite the fact that we're, 6 months out now from the June 23rd referendum, and we have had time to have it sink in, because other things have probably hit us even more like an anvil from the sky since then. But it's still dawning on them. What does this really involve? As there's that sort of, what do you mean we won? That sore winner sort of attitude, almost this resentment. How dare we win? And so people are trying to figure it out. They have no idea. They're winging it. They're making it up as they go along right now. And the irony of someone like Theresa May being the one to sort of preside over this hard Brexit, having to be the one who's going to usher Britain out, at least of the initial stages of the negotiation, because as you know, she was never a firm pro-Brexiteer. She was sort of, a little bit of a fence sitter, obviously,
She was the Home Secretary.
Yeah.
It was not her province.
It was not her province. But come on, the entire country, the entire world was talking about it. I mean, you basically knew where people stood more or less, especially on the British political spectrum. It's not like you could hide your cards too much during the Brexit debate. But the irony is, I saw Theresa May right now, the ultimate political opportunism. She's seizing the opportunity now because she comes in as the prime minister who, for better or for worse, has to preside over this. So she wants to look like she's in charge, but I really don't think she has a clear handle on it. I think the events are pulling her right now rather than her in command of the events.
All right,
she didn't really apply for the job. She had to do with it. And
she did.
Well, she did in a way, but she wasn't a Brexiter. She was never a European person, but she was not a Brexiter, and that's the situation she's in at the moment, which is quite tricky for her and for everyone in Britain.
It's still all platitudes. I mean, it's still, Brexit means Brexit, and a red, white, and blue Brexit. Oh, it has colors now. I mean, I think eventually there'll be consequences for not having even giving a clear idea how much this is going to involve and how many years it's going to take, because 2 years is ridiculous.
All right, there's the resentment mentioned by Elisabeth Moutet on the part of the other 27, and especially the Commission in Brussels. But at the same time, it's in neither side's interest to have a negotiation that turns bloody.
Well, in 2017 is an amazing timing to begin this, because it's in nobody's interest in Europe for leaving Europe to look easy or comfortable or profitable. And there are three important elections coming up in 2017 where anti-European parties are front and center, in the Netherlands, in France, in Germany. So there's no reason for this to look easy in 2017. Merkel's not going to want to make it look easy. France is not going to want to make it look easy. So Theresa May's leverage this year is compromised to an extent by that.
Oh, but time could be on her side if Eurosceptics rise in all these other nations, Nicolas.
Yeah, but in a way, I have a British passport, and I was against Brexit in a way, but in another way, I was for Brexit because I thought that Europe could move on without the British. It's like you invite someone to your house, and each time people come over, they say, "This is absolutely awful. The food is gross," so you want to have them out at one stage. And so that's what's basically happened. But I agree with you guys. I don't even know there'll be a Brexit.
Now, when you sit in Brussels, because how many last chance summits have we seen since 2007? There's always at the end some muddle, some fudge. There's probably a fudge being worked out that we don't know about.
there's been last chance summits about Britain since 1973, I would say. They were never really in the picture, but so there were always one foot in, one foot out, and that's what the cartoons show. I can show you a few cartoons about that.
Go ahead.
This one, Theresa May is a good client for us because we just have to dig out old cartoons from with Maggie, because she's the new Maggie. Physically speaking, she's the new Maggie, and she has to endorse the Brexit going in another direction. And there's this one as well, which looks like the bubble, which is from Bertram from the Netherlands, and the bubble is about to explode, and she doesn't know what to do with it. She's blowing the gum, but it's going to explode in her face. And this one that I like about the have cake and eat it strategy, because that's what they would get in the first place. This is the French cartoonist who works for L'Opinion in France, and they thought they would actually get everything they wanted, but they won't get everything they want. And
he makes everyone cross-eyed.
Yes. and last one, this is one I did during the Olympics. You say Theresa May first try. And I don't know where this is actually going to end, because how can they do the Brexit in 2 years' time? They can't achieve it.
There has been an estimate by the Robert Schuman Foundation that to renegotiate every single treaty that's linking Britain to Europe would take 9 years.
It's like, they say you go to the Louvre. If you want to look at every painting, it'll take you your whole lifetime. You spend 1 minute in front of each one or something. But I was also just going to say, I think the other issue that everyone's already talking about, it's going to become even bigger in the year ahead, is all of the Europeans, EU citizens in Britain, working, living there, settled there in various jobs, and the British citizens, like you, like myself actually as well.
But I've got a French passport
in
as
Europe.
well, so I'm
but
fine.
it's interesting because we're already hearing what you were talking about, sort of signs of a fudge. Guy Verhofstadt came out recently with that proposition of, what was it called, associate membership, for if you're a British citizen who's living abroad and you want to continue having the right to work in certain European countries, you can sign a certain provision.
opt-in.
Yeah, can that work? How would that work? Yeah,
I was going to say, what is the option under which everybody can claim victory?
Oh, God. I have no idea. I mean, you're brave enough to make predictions. I can't make predictions on this one. Any option that... Actually, I mean, I know, you know that the day after the vote, the website of the Irish embassy crashed, because if you have even great-grandparents who are Irish and you can identify them, you're entitled to Irish citizenship. And now lots of Britons are, the Britons of the half that voted against Brexit are now looking for ways of keeping a European passport. So strangely enough, something as sort of outlandish and as sort of a self-service type, like, yes, you can opt in, you pay this yearly, it's a kind of European tax, and then you can work in Europe, probably would, people would welcome it. It's easier than getting a foreign passport. And I never wanted to leave. What's more dangerous is the fact that there have been rumbles from Scotland about Scotland saying, look, we never wanted to vote for Brexit. The country, by and large, did not vote for Brexit. We want to leave. And there are going to be centrifugal aspects to this in Northern Ireland, in Scotland, and even in Wales, I should say.
And should there be another referendum in Scotland, it would be totally different to one that was held 3 years ago, because all Europeans were against the Scottish independence 2-3 years ago. I'm not sure they would be against it now.
You were mentioning those three key elections happening in 2017. In September, it'll be the turn of the Germans. And Angela Merkel, according to the polls, is cruising to a fourth term as German Chancellor.
So was Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting, because if she does cruise, and everybody who cruises today, that we don't hear from them anymore because they retire because they don't get in. But but it's interesting because we're talking about Theresa May, but when we talk about how long this is going to take, I mean, people forget that Greenland left the EU in 1985, and it took 3 years to negotiate that, and they only had to talk about fish, and that's just, it's not even a lot of fish. Many tons of fish, for a population of 50,000, and that took 3 years. And when you think about something like CETA, like the European
free trade agreement with Canada.
Free trade agreement with Canada, that took 7 years, and it was almost upended by Wallonia. So Theresa May only has until 2020 before she has to call an election.
But part of the onus is also on Merkel, who is sort of seen now as this sort of last bastion of centrist politics in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, she will be the longest standing leader in the sort of the Western developed world, I believe, and she has all the cards in this. And Theresa May's leverage is
she's far ahead in the polls. I would worry if I was.
Douglas Herbert, your thoughts on Merkel? Is it going to be an easy time?
I mean, the first thing I thought when you asked the question, it's September. I mean, God, September sounds like it's eons away.
You're gun shy when it comes to predictions.
Remember in September 2015, what were we saying about the outcome of the U.S. election? It was a totally different landscape. Look. In the sense that Angela Merkel, she's been extremely resilient. She's a survivor. She's stuck to her guns through thick and thin. She does have that sort of, she projects that aura of like sort of the German's mother. She's someone that you can.
But it's
rely
about
on
more
in
than Germany, right? She's got the weight of Europe on her shoulders, perhaps to a certain degree.
But in that last visit that Obama paid her, where they're saying he's almost, he was expecting to be able to hand off his legacy to Hillary Clinton. That didn't work out the way he had hoped. So instead, he's standing there next to Merkel, almost handing off his legacy to her. But yeah, she has a ton of pressure on her shoulders, and whether that could work for her ultimately.
Is the future of Europe in Angela Merkel's hands?
It's part of it. I don't think it's just in her hands. The other thing is that there are rumbles in Germany for various reasons. And one is just, wear and tear after 3 terms. One is, of course, the refugee issue, which now is not as strong as it used to be. And she's really backtracked hard. She said multiculturalism doesn't work anymore. We shouldn't accept anybody anymore.
She's for a burqa ban.
She's really realized that was really dangerous for her. But there's also the fact that even in Germany, you've got centrifugal forces. They have the Lega Nord in Italy, where the northern part of Italy says we are sick and tired of paying for the rest of the country. Well, they have a kind of Lega Sud in Germany, Bayern, Bavaria, and Baden-Württemberg, which are the only 2 Länder which actually pay money into the system for the 14 others. And they are tired of paying for everybody. They're the ones that have no unemployment, that they have a booming economy. They have hardworking people, and they say, we've been paying ever since reunification, and right now we're supposed to pay for refugees in addition to that, and we've had it. And all sorts of things may happen from this. There has been a scission within the Christian Democratic majority, in that the Bavarians, the CDU, which is historically separate from the CSU, has started saying that they wanted to have a different policy. I don't think we can predict anything.
All right, the haves and the have-nots, an issue in Germany. When we come back, we're going to see how it's playing out here in France, where there's also an election in 2017. Stay with us.